Joyce carefully put sandwiches and a thermos of hot tea into the bag and smiled affectionately. This was not the first time she had prepared her fiancé for a business trip, and she always tried to make him feel as comfortable as possible on his way. The girl sighed. Clark would be gone for a few days, and she knew she would miss him madly again. Finished packing his bag, Joyce knocked on the bathroom door and called for Clark, but he didn't answer her. The girl went inside and immediately found herself in his arms. "Clark, put me down!" she squealed merrily. "You'll be late." "It's okay, they'll wait." He laughed and hugged the girl even tighter. "I love you." "I love you too, honey," said Joyce softly, and kissed him. Clark didn't let his beloved out of his arms for a long time yet, and when they came out of the bathroom, he realized that he really was late and began to hurriedly get dressed. 10 minutes later, he jumped into the car and, waving goodbye to Joyce, drove away. The girl looked sadly after him and felt a wild melancholy. They disliked to part with each other, but Clark really wanted to earn more money so they could play a lavish wedding. Joy was okay with an ordinary ceremony, but Clark wanted his sweetheart to have a real wedding dress and a gorgeous celebration like everyone else. In fact, Joyce was afraid of the reaction of her future mother-in-law more than anything else. Mrs. Moore openly expressed her antipathy, and it was clear that she was against her son's marriage to Joyce. After finding out that Clark was going to celebrate the wedding on a grand scale, she would decide that this was Joyce's whim. More than once, the girl tried to talk Clark out of celebrating the wedding so as not to anger his mother, but he promised her that in time she would realize that she could not find a better daughter-in-law than Joyce. Finally, Joyce agreed, but in her heart she did not believe it. Remembering the future mother-in-law, Joyce again sighed heavily. Suddenly she was seized by some bad feeling, but she hurried to push away unpleasant thoughts and, to distract herself, did her household chores. The week passed quietly, but a couple of days before Clark's arrival, his mother visited Joyce. "Oh, you probably don't know, but Clark is on a business trip, and he'll be back in 2 days," Joyce said. "Come in, please, I'll make you a cup of tea." "Wonderful!" rejoiced Mrs. Moore for some reason. "I have cakes with me too." Joyce was surprised by this kind attitude toward her, and even thought that the woman had finally come to terms with her son's choice. The girl bustled about in the kitchen, put on the kettle, and took out cups. But when she poured the tea and took the first sip, she involuntarily winced, as it tasted a strange flavour. She shared her observation with Mrs. Moore, but she said that she had not noticed anything, and continued to talk carelessly about how much her son worked and got tired on business trips. Joyce did not argue with her. She suddenly felt very tired. Clark's mother, seeing that Joyce was beginning to feel sleepy, suggested that she go for a walk in the fresh air. Joyce got up and, with difficulty, went to get dressed. While she was gone, her future mother-in-law quickly washed the remains of some white powder that she had slipped into her tea earlier. Then she wrote a note and left it on the table. Mrs. Moore knew that she and her future daughter-in-law had similar handwriting, and she was sure that her son would not look closely. She was glad that she had thought of everything so well, and now she could get rid of her son's nasty bride forever. Mrs. Moore had long ago found her son a more suitable match, and she was convinced that Clark would not suffer long, and would even be grateful to his mother. The woman called a cab, put sleepy Joyce in the car, and drove her to the train station. The girl's mind was foggy, and she only wanted to sleep. Having put the poor girl on the train, Mrs. Moore jumped out onto the platform, and having waited for the train to depart, satisfied, went home. After sleeping for a day, Joyce finally opened her eyes and looked around in bewilderment. Realizing that she was in the train compartment, she looked in horror at the neighbour across from her. It was a man in his 30s who was watching her closely. "Well, you're finally awake. I was beginning to get worried about you." "I'm Lloyd." "And what's your name?" the companion asked sympathetically. "Joyce. I'm sorry. My head hurts so much. How did I get here? I don't remember anything." The girl grabbed her head. "I only remember that I was going somewhere with my future mother-in-law, and then there was nothing." Then Joyce checked her pockets and found no phone or money there. "Oh, where are my things? And my documents? Phone?" Lloyd shrugged and said that when he went into the compartment, he found her already asleep, and there were no things with her. The girl burst into tears in despair, not knowing how to get home. Then Lloyd, realizing that the girl was in a difficult situation, suggested that she get off with him at his station and go to his house to at least rest and decide what to do next. "Joyce, please agree. I live with my mother, so you have nothing to fear, because it will be very difficult for you alone in a strange city without money and documents, especially since the night is almost upon us." "Thank you, Lloyd. You are my saviour," she sighed, wiping away her tears. When Joyce and Lloyd entered his house, his mother Vera met them on the threshold. She looked at Joyce in a friendly way, and without asking too many questions, immediately invited everyone to the table. After dinner, when Joyce went to rest in the room allocated to her, Vera asked her son about her in detail. But Lloyd did not know what happened to her himself. He only understood that she was travelling somewhere with her future mother-in-law, and what happened next was a mystery even to Joyce. "I think she's a very nice girl," Vera said with a sad sigh. "I think so too," agreed Lloyd, and for some reason he blushed. Early in the morning, Joyce woke up feeling much better. She once again thanked Lloyd and his mother warmly for their hospitality and asked to use the phone. She dialed Clark's number. When he realized that Joyce was calling, he began yelling and insulting her. "How could you, you wretch? You leave a note and run away. I was in love with you, and you've been cheating on me all this time." "Clark, what are you talking about?" exclaimed Joyce in horror. "I didn't write any notes, and I never cheated on you. I'll come over soon and we'll talk." "Don't even think of coming here. I don't want to know you anymore," he shouted and threw the phone against the wall in a rage. Joyce called several times more, but Clark was not available. The woman burst into tears. She did not know how to get home because she could not buy a train or plane ticket without documents. The next day, after thinking over her situation, she asked Lloyd to lend her some money to get by hitchhikers and buses to her hometown. But it turned out that Lloyd had already thought of everything. His colleague was going to her state in a few days, and he kindly agreed to give Joyce a ride. "Lloyd, thank you. I'll never forget what you did for me," exclaimed Joyce, and in a burst of gratitude she hugged the man. "I'm happy to have met you on my way." Lloyd gave Joyce the mobile phone he had bought for her, and the first thing he did was put his number in it, asking Joyce to call him right away if she needed help again. All these few days before her leaving, Joyce had been staying at Lloyd's place and helped his mother as much as she could, but her heart was not at peace. Joyce could not understand why her fiancé had treated her this way, but she was sure that she would solve this misunderstanding when she saw him. Warmly saying goodbye to Lloyd and his mother, Joyce left, and a day later she rang the doorbell of the apartment, worrying and hoping that Clark was home. But the door was opened by his mother. "Now I realise everything. You set this whole thing up," said Joyce, who suddenly had the whole puzzle together. "Well, you can keep your beloved son for yourself," said Joyce proudly, and without regret she left the house where she had unsuccessfully tried to be happy. Following her, Mrs. Moore wheeled out the suitcase with Joyce's belongings and slammed the door. The woman returned to the room where the drunken Clark was sleeping on the couch. He had not come out of this drunken state for a week, but Mrs. Moore believed that everything would pass as soon as he finally sobered up. And then she would do everything to arrange a happy family life for her son with a girl worthy of him. Meanwhile, Joyce went to her friend and cried on her shoulder the whole evening because of the injustice that had happened. 2 days later, she went to the train station to buy a ticket to the town where Lloyd lived. The next days, tickets were sold out, and an upset Joyce walked away from the box office. Suddenly, she felt someone touch her arm. She turned around and saw Lloyd. "Lloyd, it's so great that you came," she sobbed, wiping away her tears. "I just realised I don't want to be without you. Will you let me be there for you?" Joyce nodded, and tears poured from her eyes again, but this time from happiness.